This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations. Here's your host, Jonathan Green.
Welcome back to another edition of the Bar Conversations. It's another great episode, aren't they all? Maybe I'm just a little biased. We got the Western Express for our Bar Conversations. They're a country music duo out of Texas. I guess they're truly a band, but we talked to two of them as they have a brand new album out now. Also for our tasting notes, it's still Cocktails 101, and Jake Sulek will be talking about the sour recipe that is and how you can build off of it and what all goes in it. But before we even get into tasting notes and our bar conversations, I want to pass along some information. As you know, I'm based in Kentucky, and Eastern Kentucky has had a tough time with the flooding recently. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those folks involved and trying to clean up everything down there. And you can help the Kentucky Distillers Association, the Bourbon Crusaders charitable organization, and a guest of this show, Fred Minnick, are joining forces once again, this time to support recovery and rebuilding efforts from the catastrophic flooding in eastern Kentucky. The Kentucky Bourbon Benefit will feature an online auction of exclusive private barrel selection experiences, rare and vintage spirits, and unique tasting and tourism offerings from Kentucky's signature distilling industry and hospitality and charitable partners. The online auction will begin on August 11th at noon Eastern and run until Sunday, August 21st at 11 p.m. Eastern. Go to kybourbonbenefit.com to view auction items and bid. All proceeds will go directly to the state's official Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund to assist those impacted by flooding. So again, kybourbonbenefit.com to help out all of those folks and also get some really cool things in the process. Like I said, our bar conversations is with the Western Express, and up next is our tasting notes with Jake Sulek. Enjoy.
It's almost time. Where did I put those? Here they are. It's time for tasting notes.
Joining us here once again on Cocktails 101 here on Tasting Notes is Jake Sulek. He's the beverage director partner with the Professors LLC. Jake, welcome back.
Thanks, Jonathan.
And on our first one this month, and if you guys missed it, you got to check it out. It gives you all the basics on what to do when wanting to get into cocktails, from the tools to what you're mixing with to the liqueurs and liquors that you're going to need. But if we're going past that, now it's time to get into the recipe making. And you always joke with me that I should be able to do these, and it's a 50-50 chance sometimes on how good I can do. But I've gotten better. But with that said, what's a good recipe that we can start with and kind of build from?
So when I'm teaching people how to do this, one of the templates we always start off with is going to be a basic sour recipe. Because if you have a really good sour recipe, all of your drinks that have a sour element, any kind of citrus juice, will always work with this recipe. I joke about making cocktails, it's a lot like baking. You really only need 3 ingredients to make bread, but the different proportions of those ingredients result in a different quality of bread. Cocktails are the same way. Now, some people we're going to offer different sour templates than the one that I have today, but this one will always work for you no matter what. So the first one I want to talk about is the sour recipe. Sours actually come from something called punch, which goes back 400 or 500 years in history. It always had 5 ingredients. You had strong, weak, sweet, sour, and spice. Over the course of the development of America between the Revolution and the 1830s, you saw a rise in a lot of bar culture here, and people started demanding punch made their own way. And so our earliest bartenders created something called the sour. All it is just a miniature version of a big bowl of punch. So it's simplified into 3 ingredients. You've got your strong, which is your spirit, your sweet, which is some kind of sugar, and then your sour, which is citrus juice. And the template that I teach people, you want to do 1/2 ounce of sweet, 3/4 ounce of citrus, and 2 ounces of spirit. And that ratio will always work for every drink.
Now, when you say punch, are we talking about back in our college days when someone would do something fun in a in a big ice chest? Is that what we're kind of talking about?
That's what they often looked like. They were in fancier bowls at the time, but the idea was to create a large format communal drink that everyone would have to get together around and talk about how work was today and politics and everything else that people talked about in the tavern at the end of the workday. They were a little bit lower in alcoholic quantity. Like we tended to use a lot of fortified wines, champagne, rather than some of the harder spirits we use today. But people wanted to drink that flavor profile, but they wanted it their way and they wanted it fast. And so the American bar culture created the sour. The whiskey sour is probably the easiest and most ubiquitous that we see today. Really easy, half an ounce of sugar syrup, 3/4 ounce of lemon juice, and then 2 ounces of a whiskey of your choice. You shake that, fine strain it into a rocks glass with some ice, and you've got a perfect whiskey sour.
And when you say this can kind of go across the way, pretty much any type of spirit can be used in this format. It just will probably produce different types of flavors depending on the juice that you use as well.
Exactly. If you look at your classic recipe for a daiquiri, for example, it's half an ounce of a sugar syrup, 3/4 ounces of lime juice, and 2 ounces of a nice white rum. It's exactly the same. Now, typically with a daiquiri, we would shake it and fine strain it maybe up into a Nick and Nora or a coupe glass. So we might maybe serve it with a lime on the side. We'd serve it a little bit differently, but the actual recipe for it's the same. There's a great gin cocktail called a Southside. It's half an ounce of sugar syrup, 3/4 ounces of lime juice, 2 ounces of gin. You throw a little bit of mint in the shaker. Same thing. Shake it, fine strain it into a coupe, and you've got a Southside. It's really just a gin sour, kind of put together a little bit differently, but the recipe, the sour ratio, is always the same.
And then when you're saying the syrup, are you kind of talking a simple syrup that we would see on the shelves, or is it something different?
Yeah, just a simple syrup. I like doing a 2-to-1 syrup in my sours. That means 2 cups of sugar to 1 cup of water. It's a little bit more concentrated. You get a little bit more flavor out of it than just a 1-to-1 syrup. And it's the difference in your syrup weight is why you'll often see different sour recipes online. Sometimes if you notice, somebody will have more sugar than somebody else, and it's probably just because they're using a different weight, a different amount of sugar in their syrup. But if you always just make a 2-to-1 and have it at home, then this half, 3/4, 2 ounce recipe will always work. And if you make a 2-to-1 syrup at home, the higher level of sugar will actually act as a fortifying agent, and it'll help the sugar stay bacteria free. So it's just a good practice to do at home anyways.
And then if you go out, because you're like me and you get nervous about trying to make anything at your house, what are those ones out on the shelves at a liquor store? Those type of simple syrups. Are those 2-to-1s, 1-to-1s, or do they vary?
They vary. Generally, you can check the back of it, and you just want to look for something that's a little bit more concentrated, or you can taste it. If you buy a little 16-ounce bottle of simple syrup and you're not really sure how sweet it is, make a whiskey sour at home using the half an ounce, 3/4 ounce, 2 ounce recipe. And if it's a little bit too tart, then you know what, this probably doesn't quite have enough sugar in it. So you can just add another 1/4 ounce, just bump it up a little bit, and then it should be perfectly balanced after that.
Well, I love this, Jake. I love a good whiskey sour. It's one of my favorite cocktails, and I appreciate this as always.
Of course, thanks.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopsspirits.com.
Joining us here for the bar conversation is Stephen Castillo and Phill Brush, better known as the Western Express. Guys, welcome in.
Howdy, thanks.
Now, for those watching, which one is which? Which one's Stephen? Which one's Phill?
I'm Stephen. I'm Phill. It's Phill.
Well, welcome in, guys. Welcome in. I always like to ask this question. Since you guys are based in Austin, correct?
Yeah, Austin.
So I decided to go into my stash and get a little Still Austin, the musician, fittingly, straight bourbon whiskey. So you guys got anything good tonight?
I just tried that for the first time this weekend.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was good.
If you can't tell, I might have enjoyed a little bit.
you put it down.
Yeah, I like that. I was right next to there today. I was picking up our first T-shirt order, and it was T-shirt printing shop is right next to their still.
I love it. I love it. Now I'm guessing you guys aren't drinking anything as strong tonight, are you?
No, just a beer.
Yeah. The old Lone Star.
I was gonna say, now, do you guys enjoy a beer and whiskey, or do you guys mix it up? What's your go-to drinks normally?
I'm a Jameson shot and a Miller Lite most of the time. I mean, I'll drink Lone Star, if that's what's on hand, but I don't really get. And Dos Equis is about the highest pay grade for me when it comes to beer. Like, I don't really get above that very often. I think Phil's a little more adventurous than I am.
I'm adventurous.
Yeah.
I'm willing to. Someone turned me on to Espolón recently, taking tequila shots. Like one of those, a little bit, 10 minutes before on stage. That's pretty good. And then an hour and a half afterwards, we're playing like a 2-hour set. An hour afterwards, that usually is like pretty right on.
There you go. I was gonna say, I've had a few folks tell me they do a little whiskey or something, to warm up those vocal cords. Is what they say. It helps warm them up.
Something like
That's
that.
what they say.
Yeah, definitely get a little looser.
Now, I gotta ask this question, as we'll talk about kind of some of the new album that you guys have coming out, all that. But did you two really meet through Craigslist? and it ended up well.
Yeah, Phil tells this story really well.
Yeah, there was a lot of people before where it didn't end up well. To be fair, I waded through the mire. So, yeah, we met on Craigslist. I've been looking for work, and I started playing bass, moved to Austin, looking for work, trying to find people to play with, and I went through so many ads of people. I want to play country music. Here's some songs, and it was so god awful most of the time. It's like the people, I was like, these people, I don't even think they've ever listened to Merle Haggard or Willie Nelson or anything. They just think like you play guitar, you play country music. And then I heard Steve, and I remember it was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, oh my, and some of those songs are on the record. And I was like, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Like he's listened to country music before. And it was in a matter of hours, we were having a beer.
Yeah.
Went to the Continental Club, had a beer. It's like 2:00 in the afternoon. We're like, okay, let's try to make something happen.
Well, and Stephen, I mean, what was it like when you found Phil on Craigslist or vice versa? Whenever he reached out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. I had written these songs and I just had no idea what to do with them. I didn't know. I was not like a musician in town. I worked in tech. Like I was just a guy who wrote some songs, and I liked them, and I thought they were pretty good. And so I was on Craigslist because I had no idea what else to do, with these songs. And so I was just thrilled as like, sweet. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have it the rest of the band, but Phil wants to play bass. He likes the song. Let's start doing this thing. Like, I don't know. We'll try. What I remember telling Phil at the time, like, what if we could play 1 gig a month? Like, how cool would that be? If we knew we were going to have 1 gig every month, like that'd be awesome. We rehearse a couple times and, play the gig. And now, it got away from us clearly.
Yeah. All the way to an album. And
yeah,
I mean, wait, so how did it go from there? Did you guys actually start doing gigs, and was it naturally like a band kind of grew out of it, or how did it kind of work?
Well, I mean, we played in a band together for, a year before we started the Western Express together. But Phil and I were not particularly close friends in that time. I mean, we played in a band together. We were pals when we played music together, but we didn't like hang out much outside of, band stuff. And we were playing, about once a month, something like that, a couple times a month. And that band was terrible.
It had some seeds of goodness because we played some of the same songs we play now.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
that's true.
A few other people answered that Craigslist ad, so those were the people. And we had other lives, and our lives weren't entwined. We had girlfriends and things we were trying to keep together, which eventually fell apart. And,
yeah, both of us. Which we got a whole another album's worth of music out.
Yeah,
I was gonna say there you go, another few songs out of that.
Yeah.
So that was good coming back together and forming the Western Express, and Steven saying, all right, I want to try and take this more seriously. Because we had invested because we weren't excited about taking it seriously. And once we're like, let's try to take it seriously and actually do something, we gotten feedback. Like people said, I want to hear that song again, or I really like this. And once you start getting that feedback, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's move forward. This is good material, which I like to think that I knew from the beginning. I hope that's what I hold on to. I'm like, I have good taste.
You just got to find the right puzzle pieces.
Not everybody has good taste. No, that's true.
No. Unfortunately, they do not. But obviously, you guys are now, figuratively, if you're watching the episode, they're very close. But I mean, what was it like, kind of taking that next step and trying to build out what became and what is now the Western Express and build that up?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the way I've phrased it recently is that we just had to dig it out of the dirt. I mean, Phil and I were a year in, playing together at that point when we started the band, or roughly, maybe a little bit more, but we still didn't have like connections, and I didn't know really anybody in this town or in the music scene. Even a year in, I knew very few people. Phil knew a few more than I did, certainly, but I really didn't know anybody. And so, I mean, we had to get a gig and then put a death grip on it and be as good as we can be, and be good enough that people would take notice. And it's like, write better songs, sing better, play the bass better, or arrange the songs better, entertain better between songs. I mean, all those things are things that we learned just by putting a death grip on the first gig we could get and not letting go. And then when we went to drop-in kick school. We made mistakes and tried to recover from them and try to do it better next time. And so for us, I mean, I think like that first summer, our first gig was like June of 2019 as the Western Express. And I mean, that summer I was playing 20 gigs a month, all in Austin. I was racing from one to the next, just trying to get better and trying to, practice the material and get the songs out there, get people hearing the songs. And because that's always been, I mean, I think from the beginning, even when Phil and I first talked on Craigslist, or, after the Craigslist, is I wanted to play original music. I didn't want to be a cover band. We'll sing cover songs because that's part of the job, and I'm glad to do that. But I always wanted us to make it on the original music. That was always kind of my vision for how the Western Express would go. And so, all those gigs, kind of grinding it out especially that first year, it was like, play the originals, get them in front of people, get people singing along to them, get people recognizing them, and get people's attention with the original music. That was really that was kind of always our strategy. Suck them in with a George.
And it worked.
Yeah, suck them in with a George Strait song and then hit them with one of yours. It works every time. It works every time.
I feel like that could also be a song on an upcoming album.
It could also be a song on an upcoming album. We'll give you credit.
Yeah, the name, the Western Express. How did you settle on that? And I know, reading about it, I kind of have an idea, but how did you guys come about with that?
Well, I tell you, I kick myself all the time because it's hard to say. We're both huge Willie Nelson fans. I feel like I started maybe a little bit bigger, and now Steven's, we keep kind of pushing past each other in the who's a bigger Willie Nelson fan. And we had named originally the band after one of our songs, the first group we played in, and when that we knew it wasn't going anywhere and it was time to reform, Steven just thought of, hey, the Western Express, that's the name of Willie Nelson's radio show back in the 50s and 60s in Fort Worth and Oregon and all these places. And like, oh, that's pretty much perfect. It tells people what we're doing, but it's not obnoxious.
Yeah.
And it has a connection to something that means a lot to both of us and to country music.
Yeah.
So it kind of just feels like, that makes sense.
I don't think from the minute it occurred to me that would be the band name, I don't think I've ever doubted it, really. the guy who was originally one of the guys who was originally in the band, he kind of cast some doubt on it. He wasn't so sure about it at first, and I just was like, man, I think you might be wrong.
It might be why he's no longer with you. or at least one of the reasons.
Yeah, but like Phil said, I mean, there's such a sentimental aspect there because we really are. I mean, Phil's a much bigger fan of Willie's music. He knows a lot more Willie's music than I do. But I would say, as far as like a fan of Willie's life, you know, and like with just kind of the study, we've both read his biography a million times. You know, we just know his life story and taken a lot of inspiration from his life story, not just his music, you know. And so I think that the name has a lot of sentimental value, I think, to both of us, which is cool.
Well, I mean, I was going to say it kind of goes with, in a sense, the style of music that you play. I mean, or the hope that you're playing, a little bit of that 80s, 90s kind of themes and so forth with the writing, but, you know, putting your spin on it. I mean, how would you explain what people get to hear when they hear the Western Express? I know that's a loaded question.
I don't know, like a border town honky tonk. Does that resonate? I mean,
I when you hear the album, it does.
Yeah, I mean, well, because we're definitely a honky tonk band. I mean, we've made our entire living has been made in dance halls so far. You know, we teach dance lessons, we play for dancers. I mean, we've cut our teeth as a dance hall band. You know, there's no doubt. And all of the songs, I mean, every song I've pretty much ever written, I've intentionally written with the dance. I'm a dancer as well. I'm a two-stepper, and so I know the good dance beats. I know how to find them and how to write them, and so all of them have that, even the ones that sound like they're from across the border. You know, so. You know, a lot of those, it's got a Southwest feel to it. I wrote a lot of these songs kind of after I took a trip to the desert a few years ago, and I went solo out to Arizona and then hit like Marfa and Terlingua and West Texas on the way back, and just got a lot of inspiration from the desert. And I came back with themes in my head, you know, kind of vague ideas of how I wanted my music to sound, and, you know, with the themes I wanted it to deal with and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, border town honky tonk. I don't know that I can think of a better way.
That's pretty good. I don't know if we've said that before, but that hits the nail on the head, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and you both are from Texas. I know you're kind of born in Houston, and, you know, I believe one of you kind of went a little further outside of the city for a little while. But what impacted Texas? Because, I mean, in my mind, you know, talking to a bunch of folks that have been in Texas country music and stuff, it's different. It's just a totally different environment down there, per se, than, you know, maybe elsewhere in the world when it comes to kind of country music. So, how big of an impact did Texas have on y'all?
I think it feels something like you can kind of do what you want here and make an impact. And a lot of that, like Steven said, is the dance halls. Is even though, you know, maybe dying or has fluctuated throughout the past 50 years, there's a lot of bands and there's still many people. It's like you can make a living or make half a living just playing in Texas, playing dance halls. If you play like the dance beats and willing to carry on some tradition, and then you're bold enough to carry on, you know, make your own traditions, then you kind of have a shot of bursting out. But if you don't, there's still a lot of people here who want to listen to you and who care about not just the covers you play, but the original music you're making. People here are thirsty for good country music that's not all covers. They want it, and it's kind of a response to what you hear on the radio. I mean, someone said that to us on Saturday. We played a gig, and this woman who I didn't even realize has been following us for 2 years said, you know, I love what you guys are doing, and it's nothing like what's on the radio, and that's all BS, and I just can't wait to see you guys later this week. And just one person like that, really, that'll keep you going all week or all month. Remember, okay, it's not just in the void. It's making a difference. There's people who really care and who want to come out and hear what you're doing and hear what's next. What's the next song you got? Mm-hmm. So when you have that going, that'll keep you going.
Right. No, it totally does.
Well, and I believe I read too where, you know, if you can't tell, they're a little different. If you're watching, they're a little different, Steven and Phil. I read that. I think you said you guys are are the perfect combination. You're the yin and the yang, so to speak.
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. It's cool to see over the years now, say the years of where we've also filled in each other's gaps a little bit.
Yeah.
Or like a short example is like, yeah, I wasn't doing much honky tonk dancing. Certainly before I met Steven, as we got closer, now I'm like trying just to get better, and I was out dancing last night.
He's out more than I am.
I'm going to go out tonight after this. I'm like, that's part of my job.
I'm going to bed.
Steven can't do it. He's got stuff to do in the morning, so I got to go out honky tonk.
He's got to hold down the
Steven and I rolled up, and I had a camper on the back of my truck and had been driving around in my truck for the last 5 years before this, playing music and spending time in the outdoors. Steven's got a camper on his truck now. He's just waiting to get that. When are we going to go out to the country so I can sleep in my truck again? We're heading out to the country this weekend. Going to stay out in the woods on Saturday night in between two of our gigs. So look at the stars and drink some whiskey. I'm so looking forward to that.
I don't think I'd been camping more than twice in the 5 years before I met Phil. And in the last 12 to 18 months, I bet I've been 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
So you are the Western Express.
Yeah.
No, you
That's
are one.
just kind of happened.
But we really do. I mean, we really, in so many ways, I think, and especially like when it comes to the band side of things. I mean, you know, I've hated every job I've ever had. You know, because none of those jobs was just being creative. You know, and thank God for Phil, because like without Phil, there might be a Western Express band, but we would not be like in any way as like on like this path of success that we are on right now. Like I would still just be some dipshit like singing songs at the bar. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I got my songs, like no one cares, you know, and like, but it's like Phil is the amplifier, like, because Phil takes all the creative stuff that I can do. And I mean, you know, like I'm kind of doing on most of it. I mean, I'm writing the songs, you know, I hired the producer. You know, my girlfriend did the album art, but I did the graphic design, like, you know, choosing the art for the t-shirts. Like I kind of get to just have an awesome job where I just create all the time. Like I get to have the creative scope, you know, but I can't book. Are you kidding me? Like I can't like balance a checkbook. Like there's no way. Like I don't know I can't organize and like get a band. I can't get 6 people to show up at the same place at the right time with all the stuff that they need to be successful. Like we need Phil for all of those things, you know. So thank God, you know, because again, I might be the creative driving force, but without Phil, none of it gets off the ground, you know. So yeah, personality wise, we're a good fit, but I think that really it comes through the most in our, you know, just kind of the band business. So
I was gonna say, you know, I was gonna ask about that because Phil, you're kind of, you handle, I'd say the business side of things to some degree. What drew you to that, and you know, kind of doing that? Because I mean, you're the manager. You book the gigs, you find the gigs, and that's a lot of
we
work.
were just talking about that.
I think it comes from a couple things. One, originally too, especially before I even knew Steven, and looking around with all these people I didn't know, I'd be like, well, who can I trust? I know one person I can trust. That's me. Who's going to hold the $500 of the band fund? And, you know, you've heard, it doesn't happen probably as much anymore, but I'm sure it does. Just horror stories of people losing money, losing gigs, losing all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I know how to do these things. And prior to this, my previous dream and career, I was a wilderness guide. And I was guiding out in California and kind of ascended to guide this wilderness program. Not just being a guide, but directing the program. So I would do, it was kind of similar, except I was both me and Steven, where I would do everything. I would be guiding trips and planning activities for kids, but also recruiting the kids, recruiting the staff. By the end, I was basically doing everything, except, you know, the insurance, which the camp would handle. But I did all that, and it was a good lesson on how to run a business and how to hustle and how to kind of do the things you don't want to do to get to the things you really want to do. It's like, do I really want to be calling these parents, get their kids on a wilderness trip? Not that much, but do I want to be on a wilderness trip, climbing a mountain, like teaching these kids about life and outdoor skills and responsibility? Yeah, I do want to be doing that. And so it's been cool. And I'm fortunate because I get to absorb a lot of lessons from Steven about how to kind of go about creative things and how to think about things and vice versa. And Steven, I know if I have to call upon, hey, I need you to get this stuff together and send this email or do this, then he can do it too. And we're in a good way in that way.
Well, that's the yin and the yang where you guys do work so well. And Steven, as a songwriter, where do you pull that inspiration from, and where does your storytelling come from?
80s and 90s radio country. I mean, by and large, that's what I grew up listening to, is just whatever was on in my dad's truck, growing up. And as I got older, I started looking for who was writing those songs. When I was growing up, it was whoever was singing it was just, it was a George Strait song, or it was a whoever, And then as I got older, I started, and got more interested in songwriting. I started paying attention to who's writing these things, And my favorite songwriter is this guy named Dean Dillon, who has written, I don't know, some ridiculous number of number one hits for George Strait. Like, it's like 30. He's written like 20 or 30 number one hits. I don't know. It's something ridiculous.
Just for George Strait.
Just for George Strait. Like, that's not on. That's on. Like, he wrote Tennessee Whiskey. Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's he's ridiculous, and he's my favorite songwriter by far. But I didn't know he was my favorite songwriter until much later, because all I knew were the George Strait songs I grew up listening to, right? And so, I was 35 or something before I even knew who Dean Dillon was. But yeah, as I got, I really, most of my inspiration comes from, like 80s and 90s country. But I've always loved, I like story songs a lot. Those are have always been some of my favorites. And I grew up on songs like In Lonesome Dove, the Garth Brooks song, or like Marina Del Rey, which is an old George Strait song. Like, these are these story songs that really, like, I don't know, they spoke to me growing up. I could put myself there in the story, and I guess as an adult now, as a writer, I guess that makes a lot of sense, liking the stories. But yeah, I drew from those, and then, I had some kind of, I had other influences too. Like, I was a child of the 90s, I went to middle school and high school in the 90s. And so I listened to Nirvana and Pearl Jam and, Rage Against the Machine. Like, I've really absorbed a lot of music, and I think that across the board, though, it's always been like, who's writing like something honest? Like, I had an innate ability, I think, even though I didn't verbalize it that way. I think I was drawn to like the honesty in the writing. I could kind of had a sense for it, even like at a young age.
Well, and what I've been able to hear of the album has been really cool to see what you've been able to draw. And before I even get to the album, it's not just you two now. I mean, you guys can go play, kind of duo sets, but you guys have been able to build out the band. What's that been like to have 6 people show up or more, if you can get a fiddler here or there?
Yeah.
Or
so I'm going to say this real quick, and then I'm going to let Phil talk. But I'm going to say, like, Phil is the social hub, and we are all just spokes on that hub. And I tell people this, sometimes it's like, this band is Phil's band. Like, all of the people in this band, Phil found them, and he brought them all together, myself included. So, really, I mean, so much credit. Again, the yin and the yang here, because there's no way I could have put a band together. Every time I've tried to hire someone for the band, it's not gone well. Like, I hire the worst people, and Phil hires the best people every time. So how'd you do it, Phil? Fill us in.
Yeah. I wonder where that comes from, of just picking the right people.
Yeah.
I have to think. I picked players from my life and from people who, it's kind of that Willie Nelson thing, Willie Nelson family. You want people who are good musicians, and you want people who are also good people. People always say, like, yeah, there's a lot of good musicians, but who do you want to ride in the van with for 11 hours? Like, because like our lead guitar player, Devin, like, we were both talking the other day, like, yeah, we'll drive with Devin anytime.
Anytime.
It'd be great. Like, 4 hours in the car with Devin, like, that'll be a great time.
That sounds awesome.
And then now that, like, time has progressed, he was, mostly bluegrass guitarist who loved listening to country music and needed that opportunity to be like, hey, you're a kick-ass guitarist. What if you learn these songs and and then had a chance to stretch your kind of muscles that way. And that's kind of what I needed. And he didn't even know that's what he needed. Kind of same thing with our drummer, where he was a jazz and he'd been playing with an indie pop kind of group. We called him last minute, about an hour before a gig once after another drummer canceled. And I think Stephen would tell it good, but after 2 songs, Stephen's like, "You're the one.
You're the one. Don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere, buddy. Like you're going to be on all the gigs coming forward."
Yeah,
thank God that guy canceled.
Yeah, thank God.
And he was on a date with his now fiance. We're like,
we pulled him away.
I was like, "Here's $200, man. We need you to show up right now." I was like, "I need the $200, babe."
And it was like one of their first dates.
Yeah,
it was like their second or third date.
She's a musician. Also, she plays in the band now.
Now she's also in the band.
And she does a lot of great singing, both lead and harmony singing, and a little bit of musical direction.
So it was meant to be for those two.
And our steel guitar player who we've played with, one of them we found on Craigslist. Someone hired us for a gig and said we must have steel guitar. We hadn't carried a steel guitar, so it's like, well, we got to have a steel guitar. I told this way we're going to have it, and so and our other guitar player who we play with, I went to summer camp with him. So I've just been. Pals are very important to me, and having good pals is always really important, and having those good people around is really important. So I think that's one thing that's rubbed off on Stephen and has continued to guide me is, times are up and down, but if you have good pals, you can usually weather the storm.
Yeah.
And that's musically.
Well, that goes back to that Willie Nelson and family thing. You got family.
Willie Nelson and family. It's like, what happened? Yeah, it's tough for Willie Nelson before he was Willie Nelson and family.
And I mean, I have to say, like, this kind of calls back to the yin and yang thing. But I mean, I feel like I've learned so much from Phil just from being his friend. He's taught me how to be a better friend. I mean, I've watched him be that social hub, and how he, just how he treats his friendships, and the way he is with his friends. I mean, I've learned so much, on a personal level, just from watching and being a part of that. So I mean, yeah, we can't overstate it. I don't think, just how important our friendship is.
Yes.
Now without our friendship, there is no Western Express. Like, so much of it is built on that.
And then that means there's no lunatics, lovers, and saints.
Poets.
Which which is dropping, or lovers and poets. So when this will be out by the time your album will be out by the time this airs. So what can folks expect on it?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I do really think Stephen hit the nail on the head with Border Town Honky Tonk. I don't have quite the album list, the track list in my brain of what goes after what, but I feel like it's a nice journey of kind of hardcore honky tonk. We're out there to that wispy, we're in the desert. Where are we? What's happening? Did we take something? To lose our mind. Oh wait, we found our mind again. Okay, here's a whiskey shot. Okay, things didn't work out. Here's a sad song. Okay, things are back. We're celebrating. Okay, we're back to the kind of ethereal.
And then there's a song about a quesadilla.
And there's a song about a quesadilla. A classic country novelty song.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, that does pretty much go with the flow of the track list as I pulled it up, because, I mean, you lead off with Honky Tonk Saints, like number 4 is Trust Me, You Can't Trust Me, then you finish on Quesadilla Mamacita. So, I mean,
literally a song about a quesadilla. So that's what you ask what they can expect. They can for sure expect that. In
the title, obviously I screwed it up, but it's Lunatics, Lovers, and Poets. I don't know where the word Saints came from, but apparently so. But where did the album title come from? Because a lot of times it'll either be the band's name or the person's name, or maybe a song from the album. So how did you guys settle on this?
We didn't really settle on it. I just told Phil what it was going to be.
And then he told me why, and it didn't take. I mean, I didn't have. Anytime I have a creative objection, I'll voice it. But I rarely have a objection. I'll ask why, but it's usually pretty thought out. I will say that. And this one is as thought out as any other one.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how I found it, but it's a reference to A Midsummer Night's Dream, the Shakespeare play. So there's a monologue that Theseus gives, where he's talking. He says, the lunatic, the lover, and the poet all have a similar imagination, and the lunatic, everything is frantic, and the lover, he'll see beauty in an ugly woman, and the poet, he'll just dream something up that doesn't exist and pull it out of the wispy air. They all kind of share this sort of crazed, imagination, and it really it resonated with me immediately. And I don't remember how I found it or how I came across it. I mean, I had a copy of the book, but I don't know if I just pulled it out one day, or maybe I saw it on Instagram or something. That seems more likely. But I knew, and for me, it fit so well because, in addition to writing, the poet side and the lover side, if you listen to the music, there's plenty of themes of love, and I draw from real life experience. My love life has been everything from elated to just a complete mess, at different times. Phil's been through every phase of all of those. But then the whole lunatic part for me is, I've had my own struggles and victories at times with mental health and mental illness, and something that I advocate for, pretty strongly. I try to be vocal about, the openness and talking about it and trying to remove the stigma about mental illness. And so it just so much, if you listen to the themes of the songs, I use the word crazy through 2 or 3 different times throughout the songs, and it's not heavy handed, but the themes are there. I think if you kind of know what to listen for, and I wanted that, I wanted scope, I wanted it to be more like an art project, not just like, here's some songs that I wrote, I really, all of it really, to me, I wanted it to kind of be, like a cohesive art project,
Well, I was gonna say, it does take you on that journey, and I feel like it's got a good balance. Like Phil said there, you go on this journey, and it could even be y'all's life journey. I mean, from the Honky Tonk Saints talking about going to church basically with these legends, and then even to trust me, you can't trust me. I'm sure that probably has happened at some point in someone's life, and all the way down to, like I said, I'm guessing there might have been someone that you just loved and wanted to call you Quesadilla Mamacita.
That was my friend Jess. She texted me one day and asked me if I'd write her a song about a quesadilla, and I heard the hook in my head right away, and I knew exactly. I was like, this song, it's written, and it took me like an hour, So that one, it was just, I wasn't so sold on including it on the record. Phil had to convince me. That was one of his
and our producer.
And our producer, yeah. That was one of Phil's creative objections. I listened.
I believe in that one great TikTok video, and we're gonna be talking to the equivalent of Walter Cronkite on our next interview. I believe people love that song.
I want Katie Couric.
People love that song, especially people who like aren't musicians and don't just like music that makes them feel good. They love that song.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool to see people really want to hear it.
Well, and I was gonna say, I mean, even the lead song and one of your singles, basically, Honky Tonk Saints. You weren't sure about that one either, were you?
So we decided to work with John Evans to produce our record, who's a childhood hero of mine and someone I was really excited to work with. And when we first started out, I had put together some demos, like just acoustic demos. And I was like, John, here's our budget. What do you think about doing 5 songs? And 5 seemed like it was something we could do in a reasonable amount of time. Neither Phil nor I had ever really been a part of like a real recording project. I mean, we had been in the studio a few times. I more than Phil, but not much more. But I'd always just kind of done it myself, and the results were mixed. But John's a pro. I mean, he's been doing this for 20-something years. He's no slouch. Like, he's there to work. And he's there to get the project done. And so I sent him, my top 5 songs or whatever, 6 songs maybe. I think I might have given him 6. Here's an extra option. And Honky Tonk Saints was not in that list. And he said, he's like, dude, you need a full record. Like, we need to do a full record. Like, we'll do the whole track list or whatever. And so I sent him 8. And Honky Tonk Saints, I think, was number 8. Like, I think I numbered them in, like, number of importance or the way I saw. And I think Honky Tonk Saints was number 8. Because I just kind of saw it as this, like, silly novelty song at the time, I didn't see its potential. And John's like, you're crazy, dude. Like, this song. And now, yeah, like you said, it's the first single. So, I'm glad. I can't always listen only to myself. I got to listen to people, I got to listen to other people sometimes too. So.
Well, and they come up with good ideas, and too, what was it like working with John? For those that don't, rockabilly star, done a lot of amazing things. What was it like working with him and being able to produce this album?
To go on what we were just talking about, and I think answer your question too. Like, Honky Tonk Saints wasn't the same as we had played it for years, and we had this inclination. Let's change the feel. Let's and he just took that and ran with it to like another level. We even changed some of the lyrics and structure of the song.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an example. Like we made the first step, I think probably about a month or two before. Like, what if we changed it from this Johnny Cash kind of feel song to a 70s Waylon kind of vibe? And he just took that. We had made one decision. He made 100 decisions in the time it took us to make one decision.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the story of working with him. I felt like I would have an idea, and I'd be like, what about this? He's like, yeah, I'm thinking that too, but what about these other 10 things we're also going to do after that? I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what it means to like be a producer.
Yeah.
You don't have like one idea. You make a lot of decisions that are good quickly.
Yeah.
And then like move on. And if you don't, and that way, I guess if something doesn't work out, you will go and sit and re-record it and make some more decisions. But you just move quickly and believe in your instinct, believe in yourself, and believe in the people you have around you you're hiring, and to make the music, and you can move mountains pretty quick. I mean, recorded 4 or 5 days, the whole album. Half the album was basically recorded in 8 hours at one point, one day. We had a wonderful session player, Scott Davis, come in, and it was really cool just being in there absorbing, watching how this process is done. Because we went to the studio and tried to do things on our own, and those tracks won't be released.
No, they will not.
They're buried.
They're buried somewhere.
Deep down in the darkness.
Somewhere on the Google Drive, just buried. Don't need to be heard.
It was not good.
Yeah, and not even on
TikTok.
No, it was bad.
No, I want something successful on TikTok, Jonathan. Yeah, I mean, I think Phil. I agree with so much of what Phil said, and I think that really the decision making was a big lesson for me, and I think for Phil too. Is like we realized, like, okay, a big part of this is just making decisions, and it's having, I think, the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience that John has to, like Phil said, like he's got to not make one, like he has a lot to make, and I felt, because of how much trust I have in John, because I know his history and I know how good he is, I felt even as someone who has such strong opinions about his own art, I felt 1,000% comfortable handing him the reins. And when something came up that I didn't like, I would just speak up, and he listened, and he did what I asked, But ultimately, I mean, I didn't have to do that more than twice or 3 times, I felt so comfortable handing him the reins, and I was there to learn as much as anything, because we have not mastered the studio, by any means. Like, we have a lot of learning and growing to do in the studio, So, I mean, we've learned a lot even since then, but we still have a lot of learning to do, and I'm excited. That makes me excited. I was just talking to John a few days ago. I heard one of our songs, I guess it's Honky Tonk Saints, it had been on the radio a couple times, and I'd heard it once or twice, and I called him up, and I was like, can I cuss on this thing? Are we allowed to cuss? I don't know how. Yeah. I called him, I was like, this thing sounds fucking great on the radio, dude. But in that conversation, we also talked about, like, we're already planning, when are we gonna get in the studio again? Like, what if we could get in January, And I mean, this time it's like, it would be awesome if we could get in there and Phil and I could be a little bit more hands-on, you know, and apply what we have already learned and allow John to continue sort of mentoring us in that way. I mean, God, what an amazing person to have, you know, to as your mentor, especially a studio mentor. I mean, he's so good, you know, and I feel really lucky to have had him in our corner, you know.
Well, and the record turned out great. I mean, I got to listen to it, you know, before we talked, and I mean, it just, like I said, it's got a hell of a flow. I mean, whether it's a kind of a slower song, you know, that's a little more heartfelt to, you know, something that you can definitely see in the dance hall, getting everyone out there dancing. I mean, you can tell there's a lot put into it and some great storytelling along the way.
Yeah.
And you know, as we kind of wrap this up, you know, with you mentioned, you know, the album's dropping. You've got that. What's next for y'all? What you got still? You know, a couple months left of 2022. What are you guys hoping to do the rest of the way?
We got to put out another record. I need 3 more songs. So I'm gonna try to put my head down and get something on the page. You know.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for opportunities, doors that are a little bit more open to us that we haven't had open, places we can call now that I think wouldn't give us the time of day, rightfully so, a year ago. It was good we didn't get those opportunities because it made us hungry, it made us work harder and write better and play better and let us know where we were, and to play shows at places like the Continental Club in Houston and Flores Country Store in Helotes, and talking about little runs here and there, contemplating going to Nashville and going out to West Texas, and just people taking us a little more seriously, because it takes a little while in this town for people to really take you seriously, and it took us a while to be deserving of being taken seriously, and so we're getting close to that point, and that feels great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the idea of just being able to like be a real working musician, who, you know, and it's like we get to like go do this as our job, and we're making a living, and we're getting by, and we're doing our thing, and we're playing our music the way we want to play it, and we're actually getting to like do this life as a working musician. That I'm excited for that, you know, and we're well on our way, I think, at this point. And so that to me, you know, it's that whole part I started out with, which is I've hated every job I've ever had, you know, except this one. Like, this is the only one that I don't get tired of doing. I'll answer emails. I don't care. I hate emails. I'm like, I got to do it. Let's do it. You know, let's answer emails. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it seems to be working out, and you finally have a job you enjoy, and you guys are doing great. Like I said, the album is out as we were when this drops is out. You've got music videos out.
We're excited.
Things are moving
I'm
in the right
excited.
direction.
Yeah, we were just talking yesterday about, like, you know, it's like we made a couple mistakes here and there. It's like, sure, okay, we made some mistakes, but it's like, dude, it's like it's still moving. You know, and this feels great to be. This is a fun ride. I mean, we're both in our 30s. I mean, I think being able to kind of wake up at 35, 39, and just kind of reinvent, you know, what we want to do next in our lives, and it's, I mean, what a gift, you know. And I mean, no one gets to do that. Yeah.
We're stubborn and chasing our dreams. We're gonna do that. That is what we're gonna do. I don't care how many PB&Js I gotta eat. I don't care how many nature hike dates I gotta go on. I'm gonna do that because I just can't stand to do anything else.
Yeah, I hated everything.
And why not? It's like if we fail and fall hard enough, we'll do something else. But we might as well try as hard as we can right now. It feels great.
Yeah.
Well, for those listening, Lunatics, Lovers, and Poets, it is out now when this is dropping. You can check out some of their music videos. You can find them on social media, and it is well worth it. Let me tell you, I've listened to it, well worth it. Like I said, Honky Tonk Saints is great. Trust Me, You Can't Trust Me is great, and I get a chuckle every time I hear Mama Quesadilla Mamacita. But again, it's a great storytelling. There's a lot of it's real music, real lyrics, and Steve and Phil, you guys have knocked it out of the park with this one, and I appreciate the time.
It's good talking to you.